Hello everyone, welcome back. I know I haven't posted in a while, but today I'm going to be showing two hunter builds for Destiny 2 Renegades. These are the two builds I have been maining for um, most of the expansion. The first build is Prismatic. I just started using this one. The second build is Arc. I'm pretty sure you've seen it everywhere, but I'm still going to show my version. Not everyone's is the same. And the Arc one did get me through the Legendary campaign pretty easily. So for the first one, we're going to be using Prismatic. And our exotic is the exotic class item. We have Spirit of Caliban and Spirit of the Coyote, which makes it so every time you get a melee kill, it causes an ignition and you get 2 dodges, which you don't need Spirit of the Coyote. It does help, but you don't need it. Um, Preferably you want all the armor to be like Brawler or something like that. Brawler or Bulwark, because health is good, then Brawler is good for melee. For stats, I'm mainly focusing on health, melee, and grenade, just the top three. If you want, you can focus on class or super, but it's not as important. And then the armor set, I'm using the Lustrous set from Solstice. If you don't have this, it doesn't really matter what set you use, just um, choose one that matches. But this one is pretty good. The 4 piece is that rapid solar final blows heal you. That makes it really good for the second you get a few kills with a solar weapon or ability, it'll heal you. So, for our exotic weapon, I have conditional finality, which recently got buffed. Now it works on overload and unstoppable as an intrinsic. So, pretty much the first shot can stun overload champions, and the second shot can stun unstoppable champions. And pretty much you can freeze enemies and ignite enemies all the time. It's more for big enemies, because small enemies you might just instantly kill them. And then it really doesn't matter what weapon you use, but I'm using Ahab Char, which is a very good solar auto rifle. I have Heal Clip and Burning Ambition. There's many weapons you could use. You can use the hand cannon from Edge of Fate. You can use Funatria Fera, the solar spread shot hand cannon. Um, or like Callus Mini Tool or something. For the power weapon, this matters a little more than the energy weapon. Because this build, you can stun all 3 champions, and that only works if you use the heavy sniper rifle, which also pairs very well with Prismatic, since it is kinetic. I have Outlaw and Ambitious Assassin. The perks don't matter that much, but Ambitious Assassin is pretty nice. The artifact, this is the artifact for both builds, since the artifact doesn't really do anything for this Prismatic build. It's more Arc and Void. So most of the artifact is going to be more towards the other build, since there's not much stuff for this build. But some of the stuff is the same. The champion weapons, we're doing Barrier Sniper, Overload Pulse Rifle, and Unstoppable Bow. That one's just optional if you want to like switch to a crossbow on this build or the other build if you need an unstoppable weapon in the power slot. Second column is Impact Shock Gravity and Gravitic Voltaic Charge. Those are both for the Arc build. And then Elemental Siphon, which that one helps with the sniper, also with the other build. Kinetic Synthesis in the third column. That's mainly for the sniper also. For the fourth column, this is for the other build too. Dielectric, and then Armor Smith and Combination Argent Blade. and then Arc Elemental Orbs and Sword Storm combo. The only ones you really need for this build are the champion weapons, maybe Kinetic Synthesis and Elemental Siphon. For Prismatic, we have the Super as Silence and Squall. It doesn't matter what you use, but I find this one to work the best with this build. We have Knife Trick and Grapple. Grapple, the melee, also ignites on kills with the exotic class item because the grapple melee counts as a melee and a grenade. For aspects, you can either use Winter's Shroud or Threaded Spectre. I'm using Winter's Shroud just because you can slow targets and that works on Overload champions and it just synergizes with the build more. And then Gunpowder Gamble, which is also a lot better with the buff from Renegades, where if you shoot it midair, it launches submunitions that track enemies, which is a lot better than before. Fragments, I have Facet of Honor, Facet of Balance, Facet of Awakening, Facet of Ruin, and Facet of Dawn. Facet of Dawn, you don't need that much. If you want, you can switch it for Facet of Blessing, which makes it so every time you get a melee kill, it heals you. That'll also synergize with the build a lot, but this one makes you radiant. Both of them are good. It's just which one you prefer. Pretty much armor mods, just usual stuff. You can change some stuff up if you want. It's mainly stasis and solar focused, but just try to get these three stats about to 100. If you can get them higher, then that's nice, but just keep them all around the same level, and that'll help out a lot. Then the next build, I'm sure you've seen this before. It is an Arc Gifted Conviction build. I'm gonna show two. So the first one I'm gonna show, this uses the Praxic Blade, and the mods you want on the Praxic Blade are going to be Balanced Form or Offensive Form if you've gotten it from the dungeon. This Blade Focus mod, just do whatever you have from the divisions. If you have the one from the dungeon, then I would only use that if you find yourself like deflecting stuff a lot. But the best one is Blade Ammo or Forceful Blade. And then the core, try and get Impact Core or Gyro Core if you get it from the new dungeon. This one is amazing, especially for Arc. Every time you throw it and it hits an enemy, it gives you a stack of Bolt Charge. Right now with Impact Core, I only have it so melee damage grants Bolt Charge, but that's still really good. I wouldn't really use Refraction Core. But Gyro Core, if you have that, that is amazing. You should definitely use that. You'll get Bolt Charge all the time. This one is still good. You won't get Bolt Charge as much unless you're going around stabbing everything, but it is very nice. And then the Catalyst, I would do either Echoing Blade or Energy Conduit. Energy Conduit is from the dungeon also, so you could use Hyper Blade, where reflecting shots makes you amplified, and it pretty much gives you eager edge. But one, reflecting shots doesn't really happen that much, unless you're a Titan with Stronghold, which this is a Hunter build. Pretty much it also makes you amplified. We don't need that. You're going to be amplified all the time with this build. So for the weapons, I would use Horror's Least, and then that is an overload weapon. This is found from solo activities, fireteam activities, and arena ops. The role I have is Trickle Charge and Rolling Storm, which is fantastic. This is like the god role for arc weapons. This is the equivalent of heal clip and incandescent on solar weapons. Pretty much, trickle charge is a new perk. It makes it so when you receive or discharge bolt charge, it reloads the magazine, or it can overflow it. And then rolling storm kills grant you bolt charge, and they grant you more if you're amplified. So pretty much every time you get a kill, it'll reload the magazine. Or if you're hitting stuff with your Praxic Blade, that'll also reload the magazine. The power weapon, I have Submersion. You can really use any crossbow. The new one, this is from Call to Arms, so if you didn't play before Renegades, then you won't be able to get this one. But there is one right now called a Good Shout. It is a Void crossbow. That one's also pretty good. But this one is probably the best one in the game right now. The one from the raid is Arc, so it would work with this build pretty nicely, but I don't have that one. So this one's also nice because it can come with Chill Clip, which means not only is it unstoppable because of the artifact, it can stun overload champions with a slow. And then I also have auto-loading holster, since it's easier to just shoot something, put your crossbow away, and then shoot something again a few seconds later. For the bolt, I don't really have the best bolts for this. I use charged bolts, which is why I have enhanced persistence. If you have one with serrated bolts, that's pretty good. It does damage when you take it out. So exotic armor piece. This makes it so when you use Ascension or Tempest Strike, it throws bouncing explosives that jolt and damage targets, and it gives you damage resist. So the armor set I'm using the new Pharaoh Potent armor set. Now this, it doesn't really matter what armor set you use, unless there's one that works amazing with arc or melee that I don't know of. I'm just using this because it's new and it's easy to farm. So what I would do is make sure you go to your ghost and put on the Brawler armor mod. And pretty much that'll get everything to be Brawler. So now you have 195 melee and 125 health. 195 melee, I did use melee mods, but the health is all on its own. So pretty much you just want to try and do stuff like this. Like if you get this for health or this for melee, I would use that. I just changed that around. So now I have 200 melee and 120 health. So try and get Brawler. This makes it so you do 30% more damage with your melee, and the cooldown is only 19 seconds. But with this build, you'll find out that you don't really need to worry about the cooldown. Pretty much. So we're using Gathering Storm. You could use Storm's Edge. I just use Gathering Storm, unless you want something for like Ad Clear. So we're using Combination Blow and Pulse Grenade. You could also use Arc Bolt Grenade, but I really only use that with Lucky Raspberry. This build would work with Lucky Raspberry, but this just makes it so much better. Aspects, we have Tempest Strike and Ascension. Tempest Strike is what the whole build is centered around. So pretty much, you're gonna slide. So you run up to an enemy, or like a group of enemies. You slide, and then you hit your melee, and it sends like a wave of arc and launches you into the air. It jolts and grants bolt charge. Pretty much, it does a ton of damage, and after it launches you into the air, what's great about it is you can use Ascension, since you're already in the air, to then get your melee energy back because of Gambler's Dodge, and it would also amplify you and jolt targets. Also, since you're amplified, you get your class ability much faster. So pretty much it's just an infinite loop of doing the melee slide and then Ascension. The good thing about Tempest Strike is that if you use this and kill an enemy, it instantly gives you your dodge back. So you can just keep spamming Ascension and Tempest Strike as long as you're getting kills. So this is great for ad clear. For fragments, we have Spark of Ions. Pretty much all of these fragments are either based on Jolting or Bolt Charge. We have Spark of Discharge. Also, with this build, if you don't care about champion weapons, or you don't want to use the Praxic Blade, you can use either Cold Heart or Delicate Tomb. Those both generate Ionic Traces, which are very good. They give you ability energy, which you don't need that much for this build, besides your grenade. But Ionic Traces are very useful. We have Spark of Amplitude, Spark of Recharge, and then Spark of Resistance. So pretty much what you're going to want to do is, this is the build almost every hunter is using right now, so I was kind of reluctant to make a video on it because I know that's what everyone's doing, so I'm sure you've already seen this build a million times. But I just wanted to show my version of it. I like having all three champion weapons, so I don't have to change my loadout for each activity I do. The Praxic Blade is very fun. You can throw it, you can hit the sword combo, which if you have the Sword Storm combo artifact perk on, if you do 3 lead attacks then 1 heavy attack, it'll just buff your sword a ton. And then there's pretty much half the artifact is just for swords and arc, so this build is really good with the artifact. And then because of dielectric and all the other stuff in the build, of course, you almost always have bolt charge. Now for the Praxic Blade, I would use, like I said, offensive form instead of balanced form if you have it. If you don't know how to get the impact core, I know like a couple days after Renegades came out, it was for sale in Tharsis Outpost, so it's kind of rare. I think they just did it a couple days after Renegades came out so that people could get it early. But this is the core you want to use. As long as you don't use the refraction core, these two are amazing. Just make sure you use one of the cores. And then Catalyst, upper hand could work, but you have to be on higher ground for that. And I mean, sometimes you can just like jump up and throw it. That's pretty good. I think Echoing Blade is the best one, even considering the one from the dungeon, because Echoing Blade makes it so instead of only hitting 3 enemies, you can hit like 5. So you can clear out half a room of ads by throwing this once. Alright, so those were the 2 builds. I used these for the Renegades campaign, this Arc 1, before I got the Praxic Blade, of course. Here, this is what you want to use if you don't really care about champion weapons. I've got Thunderlord for even more bolt charge. The new Rocket Pulse Rifle, also with Trickle Charge and Rolling Storm for even more bolt charge. And then you can really use any kinetic weapon. You can use the new SMG, which is a heat weapon. I'm using Duty Bound, which was originally a Witch Queen weapon, but they brought it back. So now it's a tiered weapon. The perks don't really matter. I have 4th times the charm in Rampage. I just got some damage and magazine perks. It's a kinetic weapon, so it doesn't matter too much, but pretty much same thing. Gifted Conviction, same armor set. The cool thing about Renegades is now you can use any ornament on exotics. So I've got the Raiden Flux ornament on Gifted Conviction right now with the Dawning armor set. And then this one, I just have no ornament and just a cool shader and the General Grievous ornaments. So pretty much those were the builds. Um, the first one, the Prismatic one, is more for like, they're both for high-end content, but this one is like for either heavy-duty stuff or ad clear. The other one's like in between, so it doesn't really matter. This one's pretty much an all-purpose build. You can use this in anything. I've used it in the new dungeon. This can almost one-phase a dungeon boss. I've used it in Renegades. I've used it in a ton of portal activities. So I would definitely recommend this build. If you want, you can swap out Gifted Conviction for Lucky Raspberry and use Arc Bolt grenades, which would mean it wouldn't be as good, but your grenades would also be good. So then you'd have all three abilities to balance out, which can kinda hurt since you'd have to balance 3 stats instead of 2, or just 1. But if you want to go for that, then try it out. And make sure to subscribe and stay tuned for more videos. Have a good one.